this is regarding the balance of payment. Then if you look into the trade account, what is trade account? Only merchandise goods will be there. Merchandise goods will be there. Okay. Now see the export component and this is what is important for you. So this factorial you look into the more than this is growth rate, more than the growth rate. Look into the 1670. So I told you we had one of the lowest trade balance in 1670. Now if you look into the exports, from the export sides, just have an idea, this POL is petroleum and lubricants, petrol or petroleum oil and lubricants, okay. So it's petroleum products. Now if you see this, we'll see the sector, okay. So petroleum is also a major export sector. If you look into the import, it's a very important component, okay. So out of this 384, see why I am showing this 1617 data. 1617 we had one of the lowest, the oil price was comparatively very lower. So this is the only value they are showing. But again, if you look into the total import, and is it coming almost 25% of the import? 25% of the import, it's basically petroleum and oil products, petroleum products. Then after that, the major component is gold and silver. So gold and silver import was comparatively lower in 1670. So that is another reason for lower imports. One is petroleum prices was lower. That's why petroleum products import value was, it's not quantity. The value became lower. It's not that we have reduced import. From the dollar barrel 100, for one barrel it was 100 billion, sorry, $100. From there it has fallen to 45, 46 to $50, that range it has come. So that's why the value have come down. Similarly, because of the restrictions on trade, gold imports, gold and silver imports, this was also, so lower gold imports, gold and silver imports, lower price, oil price have helped our import to come down. So just have an idea regarding this component of why we had lower trade deficit in 1617. Main reason when it compared to the import, lower prices in petroleum and lower gold imports, gold and silver imports. Now this is, please note down, this survey have covered, okay, this regarding the, now try to understand that this is covered in 1617 economic survey, not in 1718 economic survey. So very rarely survey give lot of importance to their trading, India's bilateral trading partners. So this, since this August 1617 survey have given India's major partner in trade in relation to exports and imports, and top five India's trade partners in relation to exports and imports have been given. The first one, what it has given is this: countries in which India has trade surplus. So that's very important. So you can write down. What you can note down is that, just have an idea. Again, another current affair which I am going to discuss. Another current affair what I am going to discuss is that, okay, which is mentioned in the economic survey, what is called as currency manipulator. So currency manipulator and this trade surplus is something related. Currency manipulator and trade surplus is related. So just note, and at first we will discuss this, which are the countries for which India is having trade surplus. The topmost So India's major trading export partner. India's major trade partner is China. Why? Because when we say trade, it includes import and export. So when you consider India's half of the import is, we'll see that China is taking. We'll see the data, then you'll understand it. Okay, it's nearly. Okay, now we'll see the 1670. So this is very important for you. 1617, that is the official latest financial year data. So if you look into it's in value terms. It's not in share wise. It's in value terms. With the US, India is having a trade surplus of 20 billion. 20 billion. See, I told you, na? 16 survey, 17 survey given in billion, 17, 18 survey given in million. So with US, we are having a trade surplus of 20 billion. It means that India is exporting more to US and imports from US is lesser. Followed by UAE. UAE is the second export destination for India. Then Bangladesh, Nepal and UK. So try to understand that with these 5 countries, India is having trade surplus. So always keep this in mind. Now there is a high possibility that regarding India-US trade indicators they will ask you. Okay. Now be very clear because the current affair related with currency manipulator is one of the component under currency manipulator is trade surplus. So India is somewhere qualifying with that trade surplus indicator. We'll discuss that. For time being, understand that with the US we are having. So even if you forget everything, if you know that, just remember the first 2. That is the major trade surplus country is USA followed by UAE. That is sufficient. With that knowledge, if even they ask you a decreasing order or the highest, you will get able to get it. But never forget about US. Now when it comes to the trade deficit, a very interesting thing is that with China, see that the amount 51 billion and it have increased in 17-18. With China, we are having a trade deficit of 51 billion. See the total trade deficit 108. So almost, you can't say 50%, but near to more than 45% of India's trade deficit is contributed by China. See the second one, see the difference between the first and second. With China, we are having 51 billion trade deficit. Second one is Switzerland. Okay, try to understand that Switzerland is a major India's trading partner, which is the second. With Switzerland, we are having second trade deficit, followed by Saudi Arabia, Iraq and South Korea. So regarding the trade deficit, keep this in mind. China, so the trade surplus USA, trade deficit China. Now you tell me, who is India's largest trade partner? China. Okay, trade part, because this import is very high. Import is very high. So be very clear. But India's largest exporter, US. Largest importer, China. So this, it's a fact, but very important. Why? Economic survey have covered it. Okay. So be very clear with that. Okay. See, other thing, we don't go for the big list of countries. Here these 2 is USA and UAE. Here 3 countries, China, Switzerland and Saudi Arabia. That's more than sufficient for you to answer the question. Then next, this is another thing. Please note down. Okay. Sector wise share. See, if you have noticed one thing earlier, during that is before 2010, UPSC used to ask which sector in relation to exports, which sector is contributing the maximum towards exports, or which sector is contributing towards maximum towards imports. This used to UPSC used to ask before this our new pattern. So, and you know UPSC can come with any time, any pattern. So, since again, see normally I have not seen economic survey covering sector wise exports and imports. 17, 18 I have not covered, but 16, 17 I have covered. So, you note down, okay. Now, so this first component is very important. Why? It is, see, for us growth rate is not important in relation to sector wise share. What is important is the share of the out of the total exports. We are taking the year, see the share which is shown here is 2015-16. There will not be that much drastic. Okay, no, share the 16-17 provisional is also given. This 16-17, that is 15-16. Provisional that is there. Now from the export side, the highest sector which contributes to, if you take 100% of exports, almost 24% of exports is coming from engineering goods. So highest contributor towards our exports is engineering goods, followed by gems and jewelry. Now gems and jewelry is in use because of our great man Nirav Modi. Okay, so now this all the Surat people is blaming Nirav Modi. Why? We'll discuss in the letter of undertaking. Because the letter of undertaking, that which is a short-term credit for importers, their the credit have increased. Now nobody is ready to give trade finance or import finance to, because now this have become very important. Gems and jewelry have become a sensitive sector. So sensitive sector means now risk weight have been given high to this gems and jewelry. So that's why I'm telling that this have become, anyway. So, but as per the latest data, now this will affect the India's exports also. The India's gems and jewelry was contributing second component after engineering goods. Then chemical products, chemicals and related products. There you have to note down one thing. In the chemical and related products, the major component is drugs and pharmaceuticals, mainly generic drugs. Try to understand that India is considered as the for the poor countries. Okay, for the poor countries, India is a major exporter in the form of generic drugs. Then textiles, fourth is textiles, fifth only petroleum. So in the top 5, petroleum products are there. In the exports, petroleum comes 5th position, followed by agriculture. So there are 6 major components. So there are 6 major export sector. There are 6 major, 6th one is agriculture and allied products. So what is important for you is the first 2 one. First, if you know first 2, and if you remember that in the top 5 petroleum products are there, that is more than sufficient. First 2 is manufacturing, followed by Nirav Modi, gems and jewelry. So now you will not forget, okay. Then, so next one. So this is more, see, sometimes these type of people will help you to solve the question. Facts, so you have to relate it, okay. So that's regarding more than sufficient. This knowledge is more than sufficient, but important for you. Then in relation to imports. So imports, you can blindly say that the major import sector is petroleum products. And if you see the share of, see, now don't go by this latest share. Here the petroleum prices is lower. That's why it is coming showing only 22% like that. 22 or 23. It used to be 30%. But since lower oil prices, it is showing. But anyway, the highest import component sector is petroleum products, followed by capital goods. So major import component sector is petroleum products, capital goods, followed by again Nirav Modi. For gems and jewelry, third is gems and jewelry. For this only, jewelry only, he has used letter of, to import jewelry only, he has used letter of undertaking. Okay. So that's it. 3 components. Petroleum products, capital goods, So just note down what are the major capital goods: machinery, base metals, transport equipment, gems and jewelry. But it's showing that chemicals and related products, electronic goods. If you want to know, you just note down. But the major is petroleum products, capital goods, gems and jewelry. So gems and jewelry and petroleum products are very important both for exports as well as imports. So components are very important. Don't get confused. Okay, so just what you do now, make a table. Okay, export, you write comparatively, you make exports the major sector. Right side you write import and major sector. 3 will be sufficient so that you can revise that before the exam. Okay, so these are all major thing which been covered. There is some more sections are there like trade policy. India's foreign trade policy is there, that is which has come from 2015 to 20. So foreign trade policy I'll cover tomorrow with your class. First we'll cover the foreign trade policy as a module and then we'll go to economic survey. Then in this they are covered this external debt. So in that external debt only this FCNR deposits have been covered. So already that have been covered. Then WTO, that is they have been mentioning about 11th Ministerial Conference. It's also mentioning about trade facilitation agreement. Trade facilitation agreement we already covered under our WTO. But what is there in the 11th Ministerial Conference I'll discuss tomorrow. Okay. Then one important thing you need to note down is regarding Forex reserve material. I ask you to update whether I don't know whether you have read it or not. A very important change happened in 1 year because of this Forex reserve. In this survey, when I was taking you this module 3 of external sector, that is Forex reserve, I was having only this survey. Sorry, this survey with me. That is 1670 survey. But in this data, so there in your material which I have taken from the survey, I said this, that among the major economies who are having current account deficit, India is the second largest country with maximum Forex reserve. The highest was Brazil in this data, as per this data. But that have changed. In 1718, India is the top country. India is the top country. It has been mentioned. I already shared that. It has been mentioned. So among the major economies with current account deficit, be very clear, India is having current account deficit. So among the economics with current account deficit, India is having the largest Forex reserve. And as per this latest economic survey, in the latest economic survey, what it is saying that the latest data says that the latest data available in this economic survey is January 2018. So in January 2018, that is January 12th, 2018, it says that India's Forex reserve as per the 4 billion. And this huge Forex reserve made India the top country with Forex reserve but having current account deficit. So normally, if you take all the top countries with Forex reserve, they all are having current account surplus. Getting the point? But India, even though you had seen the trend of current account deficit, we are a country with current account in deficit. It's a normal trend. Even though we had current account deficit because of capital account surplus. So which are the major component of capital account surplus? Note down recently FDI and FPI. But now FDI is playing a very important role. Because of this capital account surplus, we are having a BOP balance. Since we are having BOP balance, every year our Forex has been added. And who is the custodian of Forex reserve? RBI. And not only India is the topmost country with huge forex reserve, having, this word is very important, what? Having current account deficit. Having current account deficit. And if you remove that condition, current account deficit, India is now the 6th largest forex holder. Number 1 is China. Number 1 is China. Who said US? Did anybody say US? Hey, US no need to hold forex reserve. Why? See, their own currency is the forex reserve here. Why? See, US domestic currency, people used to hold it now. Why US want forex? Okay, so see, US is exception. See, it's still China have to take long time to reach the present US position. See, US is still a very, very economic superpower. See, why is US is worried about China is that China maybe after 25 or 30 years, if they grow like this, will become. But the disadvantage with China is that population. See, I told you when it comes to, so there are, to get that tag, but China is not only a economic power, but as well as a military power. So maybe after 30 or 40 years, China will be a major contender for US. So, but if you look into the present scenario, that still economic strength wise, US is still a superpower. That much is their strength. Okay. So that you note down. So this, since these 2 points have been mentioned in the 17-18 economic survey, that is, now India is the 6th largest holder of forex reserve and the topmost country with current account deficit. So update your module, because in that module what I have said, for second after Brazil, that data have become irrelevant. This data is important for you. Now, another thing which been covered in your economic survey is, one thing I already discussed, that is FCNR deposits. Second thing is that US is come up with this currency manipulator. See, 1617, the full page, one full page have been given by economic survey for currency manipulation. See, now what is this currency manipulation? See, this is a term used by US. See, US is, see, I am telling you that US is a country where what all US says, it becomes because of its economic strength. Because of its economic strength, US norm have become global norm. Like in the case of IPR, US is saying that India is in the watch list under IPR. Only US is saying. Then Indian government will panic. No, please don't do anything. Keep it only in the watch list. Don't put in the wrong this thing. Because sanctions will come. Who is sanctioning? Only US is sanctioning. But that is more than sufficient. See, what US tried, that is the first step of weakening a country. Put US, but India will not, US will not sanction India because of China. Not love towards India, but US want a country to counter China. But even though India will not grow to a Chinese extent, but at least after, in the present scenario, only Japan and India can do it. So that's why with Japan they are having a good relationship. And Japan will never ever think about a situation like what happened in the Second World War time. At the same time, but there is a limitations for Japan. But India in future, so this will be the trend, okay, after 30 years. The largest economy will be China, followed by US, third will be India. Okay, India don't have any personal problems with the, personal means border or other related problems with the US. We have problems like climate change and trade. Those are all things which we can sit together and if Trump has been removed, then it can be sorted out. Okay, so that's a different thing. I'm not going to that part. So why I'm saying is that this term, since currency manipulator is mentioned in the economic survey, and it has come in 2017 in the newspaper many times. And so the point is, who is using the term currency manipulator? Only the US is using. And this is also associated with currency war. This is how US were, US uses different terms like trade war. See, they are not related a war. It is trade sanctions. Currency war, something associated with, it's all like, it's all, currency war is all, first beginning step is currency manipulator. So what US will do is, US will say some countries as currency manipulator. Once a country gets that designation of a currency manipulator, many economic sanctions will be imposed on them. Especially US multinational companies. You know that almost all the global banks, hedge funds, multinational companies are US based. So they will not be allowed to do business with that particular country. So obviously what will happen, that economy will get affected. So the economic survey have explicitly mentioned, three criteria for US to call a country as currency manipulator. So that three criteria is very important. One is, so this currency manipulator criteria. First is, so everything is relation to US, okay. So that's why who is using this word? US. So all the criteria is in related with United States. First criteria is bilateral trade surplus. What do you mean by trade surplus? Trade balances, trade surplus. So what is bilateral? One is US. With US and some other country. With US and the other country. It can be China, it can be Germany, it can be India. If the other country, it is not US will be having trade surplus, US will be having trade deficit. If the other country is having trade surplus, and it is mentioning an amount also, that is, if the trade surplus is at least 20 billion, see the deadline, India have touched it. And that's why I told you, you just see it, okay. In 1617, as per the survey data, it is somewhere around 19 point something, but actually we have crossed that 20 billion limit. So first criteria, so it is saying that at least with, so if any country is having trade surplus with US and the trade surplus more than 20 billion, one criteria will be, but all the three criteria should be there, then only that country will be called a currency manipulator. But what US are now, under the Trump regime, things changed. That's what I'm telling. This is the, what US norm is there. So it says that, okay, even that's not, no requirement, even all the three criteria is there, it's personal decision. Okay, so that's why China was sued. So there was two issues why currency manipulator is in use. First, it has threatened China, but China don't hear all these threats. That is the problem with US now. China will not hear to US. All other countries will hear. And now that China is going to have an emperor. What is that? The current president is, till his death, he can become the Chinese president. That thinks he is going to become a very powerful man. Okay, so that's a problem India will face in the future. I'm not going to that part. But this is very important. So bilateral trade surplus, at least 20 billion. So India, first condition, India's. Second is in relation to current account balance. That particular country should have current account balance. Now try to understand that current account balance means current account surplus. Now India escaped from that clause. We are having deficit only. And that is saying that that country, that is 3%, at least 3% of GDP. China will again qualify this condition also. China is having a current account surplus, and it's coming to that point at least. And third one is, A persistent one-side intervention in the foreign exchange, something related with intervention in the foreign exchange market. So these are the three criteria that a persistent means continuous, persistent intervention in the foreign, just write down this point, persistent intervention in the foreign exchange market. So who will be intervening in that country's central bank will intervene, and what it will do, it will try to depreciate that particular currency so that their exports will be promoted. When their exports will be promoted, who will be the sufferer? US will be sufferer. If these three, and it is again telling that, and this intervention in the foreign exchange market should, that amount which the central bank is using should be at least 2% of GDP, of that country's GDP. So this third criteria, no country is following. Nobody will use so much of amount in the foreign exchange market. So normally a country can't be called a currency manipulator. But now US, by using these two category, have put some countries under the watch list. That is what is called as monitoring list. The countries like, the economic survey says that countries like China, Japan, South Korea, Germany. So that's why now with Germany, US is not having a good relationship. Germany, Taiwan and Switzerland. So economic survey is mentioning about 6 countries which has been put on the monitoring list. Taiwan, Switzerland. But basically it is aimed at China. But recently in November, Trump, while on a casual talk, I put to India, just, it's already they said that, okay, India maybe, see, it was basically aimed for other reasons, to put India in fall in line in other reasons like IPR and other things. So India, so that's the reason why our former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan have debated on this, that by saying that India can't be put as a currency manipulator because none of these conditions we are following. We are just only reached this, and by having just a trade surplus can't be a reason for putting India as a currency manipulator. So what is important for you is that these 3 criteria, very simple. Trade, see, they will not ask you for these facts, 3% or 20 billion or 2%, but you just note down. What you need to know is that they will ask you a question like this, okay, on what basis US, on what are the criteria on which US evaluate a country to be a currency manipulator or not? That is trade surplus, current account balance or current account surplus, and intervention in the foreign exchange market. That is more than sufficient for you. Okay. So these things you just note down in relation to the external sector. It's not over. So tomorrow I'll share you the PDF material and we'll continue with the rest of the topic.